How do you deal with a tough client?
Communication is probably one of the better things when dealing with a tough client. Generally, the client won't start out tough. It'll be if you don't communicate with them or you don't do the work that they expect you to do. So I just try and avoid the client getting tough at all.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And what are some of the most common financial problems people are challenged with?
Oh, it'd definitely be cash flow.
You did say that. Tell me a little bit about what's the strangest request that you've had?
The strangest request we had was to finance an instant babe. That's a latex girl for a magician in Melbourne.
A what?
Latex girl. A girl made out of latex, yep.
Oh, I thought you meant it was actually a real girl and you were financing her, but it's actually a plastic.
Yeah, pure latex girl used in magician's tricks. Magician wanted to fund it about 20,000. That's the weirdest.
And so did you get the
request you've ever had? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, all done.
And what was the time? What's the lifetime of one of those latex girls? Depends what you do with it, I suppose.
Yes, that's the problem.
Yeah, definitely depends what you're doing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's used probably at lifetime. I mean, that was a second-hand one.
Okay, so. Right. You get second-hand latex girls. Yeah. So how do you deal with a tough client?
Oh, give them a timeline generally, because they're always in a rush and they always want things done yesterday. So if you can give them a clear guideline, at least you won't have expectations not being met, and under promise over deliver would be the best way to go, I think.
Or manage expectations.
Yeah.
What do you think the most common financial problems people are challenged with?
Definitely cash flow. You know, in any business, cash flow is probably one of the most common difficulties people have to deal with, and there's a lot of different ways you can deal with that. Maybe as simple as introduce them to a good factoring or debtor facility, or it might be as simple as maybe re-amortising some of their debt. So.
Yeah. Or call their customers and get them to pay quicker.
Yeah, or call Daniel.
That does help. Yeah. Why should people come to you, and what will you do for them?
Well, people who come to us are generally not the end customer. It's generally a referrer, a mortgage broker, a lender like yourself who has a client they can't quite place. So the reason they would come to us is they don't have the expertise, and that's not a bad thing. It's good to focus on what they're good at. We're not good at mortgage. We don't do home loans. We don't know property. We know removable assets, so chattels. So for people who are specialists in other fields, just come to us and we will provide that specialist service, but also a back-end office. So the client can see us as little as much as they want. We get a name or a number, get a full application, whatever it is, and then we'll process a loan and just get the referrer paid his commission, and he retains that client, and it's happy days.
We're also well known as articulately breaking down the back end of the transaction, so understanding the client, understanding what they need, and then breaking down that information from either VEDA reports, bank statements, that sort of stuff, to build a good submission for the lender. And generally, a lot of our referrers see that as a positive, because more than likely they're going to get an approval, where if they just submitted themselves, might be declined. So.
Yeah, that's true. So I'm sure you guys know a lot of brokers, and maybe there's some dodgy brokers you know of. What do they do that give the industry a bad name?
Well, you wouldn't call them dodgy per se. It's more that they submit a deal without building it properly, and then if they get one decline, they just keep on submitting. And then after that third or fourth decline, they might come to us. And what was a deal on the first submission is now no longer a deal, because it can just taint the deal for the subsequent lenders. They just think, well, if these three people declined it, how can I justify approving it to my manager? If it ever goes bad, they'll say, oh, we'll look at all these declines. Why did you approve this? Obviously everyone else thinks it's a bad deal. So they're not specifically malicious or fraudulent, they're just not doing the best for their client. That's probably what we would see the most.
So, I mean, as a business person, you would think shopping around is a good thing to do, right? But you're saying it could be a bad thing to do.
Absolutely. The more specialised you get, the less you probably can shop around. There's just not as many options as there might have been 10 years ago. And even then you had to be careful about shopping around with asset finance, generally business asset finance. When it's consumer, it's a little bit different. If you're looking for a brand new car, you can do that. But there's even limits on that. So the more specialised you get, the more valuable the service of the broker is, and if you shop around, it can generally be quite detrimental to the deal.
Here's an easy question. Who would you say is the best factor out there?
Oh,
Yeah, there's so many to pick from. No, you'd definitely say AR because they've got a flexible matrix. There's the ability to deal with the customer direct.
couple it with a trade finance package. That
Yeah,
helps.
yeah, which is very. There's only one other factory that offers that in the business at the moment, and they're not as flexible either. So, but you've also got the ability to amortise equipment if there's ever that deal that you need to pull in through a factoring product or a debtor product. You can still say, for example, if you have a loan where the guy wants to buy a truck, but he doesn't have the servicing, or there's something that doesn't quite fit in a normal matrix. AR will happily look at that off the back of a good, healthy debtor book. They'll still look at amortising that truck or whatever piece of equipment it is.
All true statements. Thank you very much. What's the most difficult thing to finance or obtain finance for, and who would be a big liability?
Look, the hardest stuff to finance is still luxury goods like boats, planes, anything where the lender's taken a big hit through the GFC. I mean, everyone can still remember the pain. So a lot of lenders are avoiding those sort of luxury items, especially if you want to finance it under a business name. That's a no, really, a boat or something like that. So that sort of stuff, it goes without saying, is difficult. But anything that's also very little servicing, but it's new equipment that's going to provide good stability income going forward, those projections aren't really considered as valuable anymore in the whole scheme of what they're looking to fund, or in the whole assessment scheme. Those projections could be pie in the sky, really, with the instability in the economy and stuff. So yeah, we find if you couple that with maybe a contract funding or something like that.
So
works
based on
well.
what you're telling me there, if it floats, flies, but the latex girls you can obviously finance.
Yeah, they generate income.
Yeah, so that was generating income. So it's just floats or flies. It's
Not all latex
Yeah.
model women, not
Yeah.
all. There's some which excluded. But
Yeah, okay.
There's always a company that's going to fund something, so there's always a business out there that's going to fund it, and really that's another incremental part of our position in the marketplace. Is we understand those lenders and we understand the marketplace really well, so we know where, say, a large boat would be positioned in the marketplace. We know how it needs to be submitted, and we know what the factors are that particular lender's looking for, and it's really just straightforward matrix lending, but having that knowledge makes the difference. So any and all goods can be hard to fund, but having that right knowledge and having the right lenders makes a difference.
So if I'm a client and I want to put myself in the best light to come to someone like yourselves, what do you guys look for in a client?
Definitely looking for a relationship. That's
and full
important to us.
disclosure, sometimes we have clients.
So am I.
Yeah. Sometimes we have clients who they believe they're doing us a favour by not telling us about this, that, the other, but we always find out, and we make sure we find out, because if it ever goes to a lender and there's not enough disclosure, the client just gets declined straight away. So
That comes back on you as the introducer. Yeah.
we're there to help them. We just need to know all we can about each transaction, and we'll do our best job. There's no point in the client ever holding back or trying to tailor, which is what sometimes they do. But we get through it. It just takes longer for them, which is worse for them.
Yeah. Guys, thank you very much.
No worries.
Thank you.
I don't know how to do the full to spin.
I never knew how low it could go.